how to get executive buy-in for your workplace violence initiative. This is a question we've been fielding more often lately, and it's for a couple of reasons. But there's 3 quick tips that we want to give you. So if you're in this position, you have either a whole workplace violence program that you want to roll out, or some components of it. These are going to be applicable. So let's dive right in. Tip number 1, and this is the simplest, is just to ask. Just make the ask to leadership, even if it's not within your budget for this year. Ask leadership, and they might be willing to fund it. What we're seeing, and this is more than ever, is we're seeing a willingness from leadership to explore these options. We used to get a lot of that stigma of, we don't want to scare people, we don't know if people are ready for this. Well, with how this issue is just pervasive through society right now, people are looking for solutions. And more often, we're seeing the board of directors and the C-suite push this question down into the organization to the security director, saying, hey, what is it that we're doing to address this? So no longer is it solely just safety security professionals trying to push this request up. Oftentimes, leadership is aware of it, and now they're bringing it down. So that might open the door for you in and of itself. You're like, well, I've been wanting to do this for 4 years, so finally now's the time. So it could just be as simple as asking. And one statistic to use here to help kind of solidify this point of people are looking for it, and so it might be as simple just to say, hey, can we do this, is in 2019, just before the pandemic hit, the APA released their annual study or survey on stress. And for the first time ever, they found that the #1 cause of stress for American adults was mass shootings. And so that's eye-opening. People 3 years ago were wanting that information, right? And now, coming out of the pandemic, we've seen the increase in violence. People, again, are looking for solutions. And so it could just be as simple as asking leadership and saying, hey, we have this solution, we know it works, we want to do it, can we do it? That might be all you need. Now, if you're going to get any pushback, that kind of leads into tip number 2. Oftentimes, it's the financial pushback. What's it going to cost, right? What's the justification for the spend? And this statistic is a couple years old now, but as of 2018, the average out-of-court settlement for a workplace violence-related incident was about $500,000, and the average jury-awarded penalty was about $3 million. And so that doesn't take into account things like OSHA citations or lost business or productivity, legal fees. That's just direct penalties, right? So you take all that other stuff into account, and the cost could explode. So it could just be as simple as almost pitching it like an insurance policy, right? No one likes to buy death insurance, so that's why people buy life insurance. But similar here, it doesn't cost you $3 million to implement a robust and holistic violence prevention program. It's a small fraction of that. And so when you can go in and you can say, hey, we're going to help insulate the organization from this pervasive issue that's happening, and here's kind of the dollar justification of it. It's going to cost way less than if we do experience something. That would be a great, that's oftentimes a great justification that leadership is looking for. The second side of this is talking about the improvements in efficiencies. And so there are some other statistics here that I don't have memorized, but they are real, I promise you, particularly around intimate partner violence, right? And if we just take that one issue, we know there's a lot of statistics about how much that costs the workplace every year in both time lost from productivity and other business resources that it sucks trying to deal with those. And so when you can provide solutions that can address issues like that effectively, you're positioning the violence prevention solution as something that is going to be a value to the organization, and not just a cost suck or a cost drain. So that's reason number 2. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3 here, before this gets too long, might seem a little counterintuitive, but it's something we've seen work really well recently, and that is to, instead of asking for like a small or one piece of a robust solution, ask for the whole thing. Ask for, if you're working with CPPS, ask for our whole tiered approach for the whole safe workplace certification. Paint the whole picture on how all of it impacts the organization and how you need to address everything from the policies and the procedures and employee level training all the way up to the threat management team and training for the senior leaders themselves. And when you can paint a whole picture on how all of it works together, it just clicks. Leadership gets it, right? They might not know what a solution looks like, but they know, okay, a run, hide, fight video doesn't seem like that's good enough. And so when you can come in and you can offer the whole solution and you can cast that vision for them, duh, that makes total sense. What do we got to do? Now let's figure out the nuances of how it is that we want to go about that, tailor that, tweak that to our organization. How much money do we need? Is that the most cost effective, right? And we can start taking those conversations through that next piece. But oftentimes when you just cast that vision for what a holistic violence prevention and intervention program looks like, it makes sense, even to people who don't live in this space. So that's tip number 3. So a quick recap. Tip number 1, just ask. Tip number 2, talk about the financials and how the financials make sense. And tip number 3 is go big, right? Ask for the whole thing because you know you need it, right? And we know to be consistent with ANSI standards and OSHA standards, right? We got to have a whole program in place, not just another training. And so you paint that picture, it makes a lot of sense. And when you combine all 3 of these, it's oftentimes a winning solution. So we didn't even talk, guys, we didn't even talk about national or federal or state guidance, depending on where you're at in the world. But there's all sorts of different guidance. If you're here in the U.S., there's some state-specific guidance that's out there depending on what industry you're in. There's some guidance put in at a national level for some industry-specific stuff. And then there's also some things happening at state levels to mandate some violence prevention components here for any business. So it seems to be moving down that path. It seems to be a natural progression to what we're seeing with some of these incidents. Is it's impacting the business. It's from a legislative standpoint. So we can talk more on that maybe in another video. But you guys, these are 3 quick tips for today. Give us a call if you have any questions. We're happy to help you craft a solution that you can take to leadership and walk through it with you. So until next time.